Hey guys, tonight we begin with the story of a world that was very proud of itself right before it accidentally exploded. So dim the lights, get cozy, and maybe pour some tea. Because tonight we're drifting back to the early 1900s, a time when everyone wore hats, wrote long letters, and sincerely believed that civilization was just gonna keep getting better. Spoiler, it didn't. This is World War I, when the world broke into three pieces. Back in 1914, Europe was like a big, overly decorated wedding cake. Fancy on the outside, rotting a little on the inside. And everyone was somehow related to everyone else, because of course they were. You had your emperors, your kings, your czars, and all of them were cousins, literally. The ruling families of Europe had been intermarrying for centuries, because apparently genetic diversity was for peasants. Queen Victoria, bless her little lace gloves, was the grandmother of Europe. Her children and grandchildren had married into nearly every royal house on the continent. It was like one very awkward family reunion, but with armies. So, when things finally went wrong, it wasn't just politics, it was family drama with artillery. In 1914, the world was feeling modern, confident, and slightly smug. Trains crisscrossed continents, telegraphs zipped messages faster than ever. Automobiles were rattling their way into upper-class garages. Airplanes existed, though they were basically glorified lawn chairs with engines. And people honestly thought war, the old-fashioned messy kind, was over. Because, they were civilized now. Of course, the European powers were still quietly collecting colonies like they were trading cards. Britain had India, France had Africa, Germany was late to the game but determined to catch up, and everyone was stepping on everyone else's toes in Africa and Asia. Places they couldn't even pronounce. It was called imperialism. But it was basically a polite word for global land grab. And underneath all that polite top-hat diplomacy, the whole system was trembling. A little like a porcelain teacup with too much hot water in it. Let's float over to Vienna, a city that smelled faintly of coffee, empire, and denial. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, ruled by the aging Emperor Franz Joseph, was still pretending it was relevant. Franz Joseph had been emperor since 1848, which was impressive, but also sort of the problem. The empire had dozens of ethnic groups: Germans, Hungarians, Czechs, Croats, Serbs, Slovaks, and about 6 others no one in Vienna could keep straight. Each group wanted something different, and the emperor's solution was mostly to ignore everyone equally. By 1914, Austria-Hungary was basically a walking antique. It looked majestic, but creaked when it moved. Now let's glide east to Russia, a massive empire ruled by Tsar Nicholas L., a man who looked constantly concerned, like he'd just been told the wrong order at dinner, but was too polite to say anything. Nicholas was another one of Queen Victoria's grandsons. He had a nice family, a big palace, and absolutely no idea how to run a country. Russia was huge, poor, and deeply unhappy. Peasants were starving, the middle class wanted reform, and the nobility was just sort of pretending it wasn't happening. And then there was Germany, shiny, industrial, loud Germany, ruled by Kaiser Wilhelm II, who also happened to be Nicholas's cousin. Wilhelm was the kind of man who wanted to be admired, but always took it one speech too far. He had a famously awkward arm, a famously larger mustache, and an ego that could probably be seen from space. He wanted Germany to have its place in the sun, which in practice meant a big navy, lots of colonies, and making the British very nervous. Ah yes, Britain. The British Empire was, of course, enormous. It covered about a quarter of the planet, including all the places that produced nice tea, sugar, and resentment. King George V, another of Victoria's grandsons, was on the throne. He looked almost exactly like his cousin the Kaiser, which made family portraits very confusing. Britain had the best navy in the world, the most colonies, and a growing fear that Germany was catching up. So naturally, they all signed treaties with one another to keep the peace, because that always works. There were two big alliance systems forming, like cliques in a very fancy high school. On one side, the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, though Italy would eventually ghost the group when things got messy. On the other, the Triple Entente, Britain, France, and Russia, because sometimes mutual anxiety is the best kind of friendship. These alliances were supposed to prevent war, but they actually guaranteed that if one domino fell, the rest would follow. So everyone kept arming themselves, just in case peace broke out too suddenly. By 1914, Europe was a glittering chandelier held up by threads of paranoia. And then, Sarajevo. It's almost poetic how something so huge began with something so small. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, visited Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. Bosnia had recently been annexed by Austria-Hungary, which annoyed Serbia, a small, proud Slavic nation nearby. Serbia dreamed of uniting all Slavs under its own rule, and Austria-Hungary stood in the way. So a group of young nationalists decided to make a statement. Their plan was, let's say, not professionally executed. 6 conspirators lined the motorcade route. 2 chickened out. 1 threw a bomb that bounced off the car and exploded under the next one, and the Archduke continued his day, slightly annoyed but unharmed. You'd think that would be the end of it, but no. Later, by sheer bad luck and poor navigation, the Archduke's driver took a wrong turn and stopped right in front of a cafe, where one of the would-be assassins, Gavrilo Princip, happened to be sulking over his failed mission. He looked up, saw the Archduke's car right there, pulled out his pistol, and fired 2 shots. Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie were killed instantly. It was the kind of coincidence historians would later describe as unbelievable, which is another way of saying the universe had a dark sense of humor. The dominoes begin to fall. Austria-Hungary was furious, but also confused. They blamed Serbia, but they couldn't really attack Serbia alone because Russia would defend it. So they asked their good friend Germany if they'd back them up. And Germany, full of confidence and bad ideas, said yes, offering what became known as a blank check. Basically, Austria could do whatever it wanted, and Germany would support it no matter what. Because nothing ever goes wrong with unlimited support and no plan. So, on July 23rd, Austria-Hungary sent Serbia a 10-point ultimatum, demands so harsh it was clearly meant to be rejected. But Serbia, not wanting to die immediately, accepted almost all of them, except one. Austria declared war anyway. And that was it. The fuse was lit. Russia began to mobilize its armies to defend Serbia. Germany panicked and declared war on Russia. Then Germany declared war on France because why not? To reach France, Germany decided to invade Belgium, a neutral country. Britain had promised to protect Belgium's neutrality, so naturally, Britain declared war on Germany. Within a week, the world had gone from peace to total chaos. And everyone thought it would be over by Christmas. That's the tragicomic part. Nobody thought it would last. European generals still believed in glorious cavalry charges, bright uniforms, and quick victories. They imagined a few battles, some dramatic speeches, and everyone home by December. Instead, what they got was 4 years of industrial-scale misery. Let's drift for a moment, just before the shooting starts. Across Europe, young men in uniforms are smiling in photographs. Families are waving them off at train stations, tossing flowers and singing patriotic songs. There's a sense of excitement, an adventure, they think. Postcards show soldiers grinning under banners that say, "To Paris" or "To Berlin." No one realizes those same young men will soon be knee-deep in mud, shivering, and praying not to move their heads an inch above the trench line. As August 1914 rolled on, the trains carried millions of men to the front, and the world, so proud of its progress, was about to learn how efficient it had really become at killing. This was no longer a war of honor or glory. It was about machines, logistics, and endurance. It was about who could outlast whom while the world quietly fell apart. Let's pause here, before the first guns fire, before the trenches are dug. In the calm before the storm, Europe still looks beautiful. Cafes are open, orchestras are playing, the lights are still on in Vienna, Paris, Berlin, and London. But by the time they go out, literally and metaphorically, millions will be gone.